And I found that in both angel groups that I'm in, it's that shared knowledge base that makes us smarter. We are not infallible. Angel investing is still crazy risky, as we all know. But I think we've done much better than average because of that.
Welcome to Forging the Future. And today we have a familiar face in the studio, Mitra Miller. Mitra is not only an investor and renowned author, which I didn't know about actually, but also a managing member of Mill River Advisors and a board member at the Houston Angel Network. What makes her even more special is her passionate commitment to mentoring at the Eagle Investor Program. So Mitra, welcome to the show.
I am so happy to be here, Chris. Thank you for having me.
Woman of many talents.
I keep busy.
I've noticed that. I'm running into you everywhere. So I'm happy to be a member of Han, and you've been super helpful there. And
thrilled to have you in the group. I think it's good times happening across Houston and in Houston investing.
And I didn't know this, but learned it today from you that Rod Canyon was one of the original founders of Houston.
I am repeating that from a reliable source named Andrew Clark, who has been in Han for a very long time. But yes, apparently when the Houston Technology Council wanted to start the entrepreneurial ecosystem here in Houston, they put together the Houston Angel Network and asked people like Rod to help found the group. I was not there long before my time. I'm much too young. But that is the word that's what happened 22 years ago. Yeah.
Well, Rod just keeps getting more impressive in my eyes. He's the OG.
Isn't he amazing?
The entrepreneur, founded Compaq Computer back in the day, and he was also a founding member of Han, also a founder of Goose Capital, which I'm also a member in. And,
absolutely.
It's like probably a few more things I don't even know about yet.
I'm sure many things, yes.
Someday I want to have Rod on the show, so we'll see if we can make that happen.
That is a good aspiration. I like it.
So you've co-authored two important books. I did not know this, Building the Corporate Intranet and Managing the Corporate Intranet. And this
Don't they sound scintillating?
They do. I mean, very interesting. But it's back in the 90s when intranets were a thing, right? And so these books, helped a lot of people understand what the internet was for business. And I think
they were in 1996 and 1998. I was very young. And I got lucky that I was working with a wonderful group of people, and one of my mentors, his name is Douglas Graham, was asked to spearhead the book. And he was sort of the visionary, but he didn't have the patience to write a book. And he brought me along to be part of that process. He said, "Would you like to help?" And I said, "Absolutely." It's all about saying yes. And the next thing I knew, I ended up doing a substantial part of the work, or a large part of the work, and he graciously put my name on the front. So I got to be a co-author at a very young age, which was exciting.
Well, it sounds like you did a lot of the work, so gracious and deserved. But back in the 90s, I think people didn't understand that email was even something that was only in the intranet. I remember I had an email system at my first startup back in the 80s that you only emailed other people in your company. There was no way to email another business.
That's right.
Right. And this is in the days, I think Compaq was even using something called Banyan networking, and they had a Banyan email client.
I'm sure.
You couldn't go company to company. How are some of the technology, what's some of the technology that changes in the landscape since you wrote those books?
Well, I think what's actually more interesting, at least for me, is how much has remained the same. That we really, although we have new technologies and new names that we put on things, some of the underlying principles have remained the same. So we were talking about scalability. We were talking about speed of data transfer. We were talking about the incredible importance of security. This is 1996, 1998. And it was, of course, easier because we weren't completely connected to the internet. We were, but we weren't. There were better gateways to try to prevent the internet from getting into the intranet, and we were very cautious about those things. So the technologies have changed, but I think the principles of how can we get the right information to the right people so they can make good decisions, that's really what it was all about. all good business systems, and that's what it was focused on. That's why it was the corporate intranet, is about trying to enable business to make better decisions faster that enable them to optimally serve their customers and hopefully beat the competition.
What was your background at that point in time where they actually asked you to help write a book?
So I have a political science degree from Rice University, and I got really lucky that, and you're going to hear that word lucky a lot, in that there was a group of ex-Anderson and Accenture people who put together a company here in Houston called BSG. Maybe you heard of it at the time. And they hired me right out of college and said, so you don't know how to program, we'll teach you. So I learned how to program right out of college and had to basically be self-taught. And so that's how I got that opportunity. They moved me to New York to be their first entry-level consultant in the New York office. And that's where I met some of these truly visionary people. I don't know what it was about that consulting company. You obviously have a company that does a lot of consulting as well, but it attracted some brilliant people. And I was lucky to honestly be taken under their wing and mentored, especially by some really talented men who saw something in me and decided to give me an opportunity, not just to learn to program, but to take it to the next level and learn how technology was moving. And we talked a lot about what was coming next. I remember another gentleman at BSG telling me in 1998, he said, everything in the world will have an IP address. Now, remember, in 98, nobody was saying that. No one.
No Internet of Things, yeah.
Yeah, right. But in 1998, he saw, and I just sat there going, he's so right. I mean, and we were saying, your refrigerator will have an IP address. That was radical 25 years ago.
What language did you learn first?
I mostly was learning 4GLs, but so I was learning. So the very first one was Power Builder.
Hey, that counts.
Visual Basic, and then I did a bit. I did some programming in Linux and things like that. But yes, I will confess, I was a mediocre programmer. I was very good because I know better programmers. I was very good at understanding the client and what the client needed. So a lot of the true programmers couldn't talk to the client, and I could. And I was decent enough at programming that I could talk to the programmers and make sure they knew what to do.
That's
so
important.
I was kind of that. I was the glue in the middle.
Well, which is important. And it's true. A lot of technology people aren't necessarily the best communicators, and you actually need a project manager and a client relationship manager to try to understand what is the client trying to do and
absolutely
explain to the developer what it is that they need to create.
Yep.
Right. So, well, that's interesting. And then how did you get into investing?
That came quite a bit later. So there was a leap. So after the books were published, my husband and I moved to Austin to start doing technology startups. And so we were in one of the first venture development studios in Austin to get into the tech world. And I was young and energetic and honestly, everybody was willing to think and get excited about the future until the bubble burst. And then that was a tough time. So it was a while before I became an investor. But having that background, I think there's this progression of after you have been a co-founder and you have been an advisor and a consultant, you know enough and you're talking to enough companies that eventually you realize, I could put some of my own money into this. I fell into the mistaken belief that angel investors were Mark Cuban. I'm not Mark Cuban. I'm nowhere close to that. So I didn't think of myself as an angel investor until I saw other people around me in the startup community start doing it, and frankly banded together with some friends, and we started putting small amounts into startups. So my first one is the Rice Business Plan competition. And that was a great way to get started. So I joined the OWL Investor Group at the Rice Business Plan Competition. And there are about 20 or 30 different individual investors, and we all throw some money in. We pick one company, and they're doing really well, actually.
Yeah, so good point about angel investing. I did a similar thing where how do you get started? How do you start learning?
Yeah.
What groups can you join? Oddly, I joined groups in California rather than here in Houston. I think that being an entrepreneur here in Houston, especially in the early days for me, it was fairly isolating, right? So there weren't the networking opportunities to really understand who the players are. And for whatever reason, a lot of my clients are in California. So I got involved in like AngelList and uh, syndicates like Launch,
Mm-hmm.
where you can put in 5K if you want to, and you have a syndicate lead that has maybe done more due diligence, and you're getting deal flow, and you can start writing 5K or 10K checks and understanding how it works and what you like to invest in, talking to other investors, and doing that. It's all things you can do here in Houston with Owl, with Han, with Goose, finding your tribe,
Mm-hmm.
right, and then understanding how you can participate. And also, what I didn't like about the California angel investing was that I was very far away from those founders, and I wasn't really able to help and be the smart money for them, except occasional call here and there. And that's what I really like now about our model and our studio and getting more plugged into the Houston ecosystem here is that you get to participate more and you get to help more and you get to collaborate more.
Absolutely. Now I think the other thing is you, of course, because of the world that you live in, because you're an entrepreneur and because you work with so many startup companies, you knew what angel investing was. I actually didn't know what an angel investor was, even though I was a co-founder, because that didn't exist in 2000. There weren't very many, and if they weren't calling themselves angels, right? So Michael Dell was clearly doing active investing. Today, we would probably call him a super angel, but we didn't call him an angel. We just knew that he had, MSD investments and he was doing these amazing things. So that's why I didn't think this is something that normal people can do. And the revelation that accredited investors, there are so many accredited investors in Houston and across the country. And all of them, if they wanted to, if they've got the risk tolerance for it, this is an asset class that it would be great for more people to consider, because the way we promote innovation is with our capital. And I was really excited, having been a founder at one point, now to be able to use my capital to support other founders. It's really inspiring to be able to, as you said, also give them advice, but give them that boost and let them know people who have been down this road before believe in what you're doing. So,
if you were a new investor today, where would you point someone to if they wanted to learn more about being an angel investor?
oh, I love leading questions like that. Thank you. A good softball. So I'm biased. Like I said, I got started through the Rice Business Plan Competition. But even then, I wasn't really an educated investor. I was a very educated consultant and advisor to startups. I was helping them with business planning, business strategy, et cetera. I've been doing that for my whole career. But the angel investing piece, that's a different skill set. So I really started learning that when I got inside of Houston Angel Network, and a group that is intentional about providing some education. It's a nonprofit, and there's the educational component. They gave us books to read, but there's really mentoring. It's a collaborative group of like-minded investors that work together to look at deals, evaluate deals, and potentially invest. We all make our own individual investment decisions, but you have the benefit of working as a group to get the expertise of someone who's a CFO, another person who is a lawyer, another person who happens to have a PhD in that particular science topic that we're looking at. I don't have all those talents, but the tribe does, as you said. And that's, I think, like I said, I'm biased, but I think that's a wonderful way to collaborate and make better investment decisions. And I found that in both angel groups that I'm in, it's that shared knowledge base that makes us smarter. We are not infallible. Angel investing is still crazy risky, as we all know. But I think we've done much better than average because of that.
I did notice that once joining Han, they started with, "Hey, here's a meeting that you're going to learn
Yeah.
about investing, and we're going to teach you about cap tables and teach you about the process." And that was something that didn't happen with some of the other groups that I joined. They just assume right,
Yeah.
and then you're going to go read the book or whatever you're going to do in order to learn more about how to be an investor and how to be an angel.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you make a good point about you know educating people about angel investing as an asset class, that you can be an investor. Normal people can be investors. A lot of people qualify to be an accredited investor. You don't have to be a billionaire. You don't have to be a millionaire. Right? You can invest in these businesses, and just with a little bit of education.
Yeah.
And I think it's great that Han is educating people about that. But we still need to get the word out because Houston has a tremendous amount of capital to be deployed, right? Not just an angel, but an in venture. But let me talk a little bit about angel investing from your side. I mean, how do we get more people comfortable with the angel investing asset class?
Well, it's certainly not for everyone, but I agree with you. I think if we think back to the 1950s and 60s, that was the first time that normal Americans started thinking about putting their money in the stock market. And look what prosperity it drove. All of a sudden, you could buy shares in AT&T. Normal people hadn't done that before. That was exclusively for the wealthy. And one of the ways that people can change their economic outlook is by getting access to the kinds of investments that have higher returns. They do come with higher risk, but potentially much higher returns. The wealthy have had access to that, and that's a very broad brush, but they've had access to those kinds of investments historically, whereas other people did not. The creation of the middle class came about because people got access to ways to grow their own wealth. That was the stock market before. People have dabbled in other things. Obviously, there's everything from, crypto, et cetera. But angel investing and this high growth business asset class is one that I think more people could consider as a small portion of their portfolio. It shouldn't be my personal opinion, and I am not a financial advisor, shouldn't be anybody's total portfolio. But to think about it as a way to diversify into something that could potentially have amazing returns and understanding that risk premium that goes with it. If we could get more accredited investors who probably would like to know about this and let them know that this is something that's open to them. I know people are thinking about it more on the crowdfunding side, et cetera. I want to think about it as true angel investors, people who are accredited, who can take a little bit of risk and want to get educated. You should not be investing in individual stocks in the stock market if you're not invested. Go to a mutual fund instead, if you want that kind of diversification. But I think the same thing can happen in angel investing. If you don't want to go through the heavy-duty education, you can go into a fund like yours. If you want to get exposure to this asset class of software companies, go into a fund led by smart people who study it all the time. But if you want to do some of it on your own, like investing in individual stocks in the stock market, that's when you can go get into a group like ours or some other wonderful angel groups that help you learn those skills. So when you bring in your investors into your fund, do most of them have a track record of angel investing, or are most of them new to venture investing?
I think a lot of them are, more experienced because it's venture, which is like maybe a step up from angel investing.
It is.
And then I think people get scared from the accredited investor term. It's like, oh, do I have to take a class? Do I have to get certified?
Really?
It's really just validating your income levels. How much are you making per year, and how much do you have as a net worth?
Yep.
And the levels are a lot lower than most people think.
Yep.
Although I think it's crazy that there is a limit, because it does prevent people from investing in companies. They can go to Vegas and blow $10,000 and nobody cares, but you can't put $10,000 into a company that you like, right? And so
Agreed.
I think this is wrong, and I'm sure it will be hopefully corrected at some point soon. Like you said, access to equities, venture capital. I see similar things, like getting comfortable with the asset class in venture, even in Houston, right? People have, even though we're wildcatters throwing money in the hole in the ground, which I say all the time, but uh, they're more comfortable investing in energy, oil and gas, real estate, and the alternative asset class of venture and technology and things like this are a little bit scarier for them, or maybe they don't understand the time horizon that it takes, 10 years to plant your seeds, and they grow, and some of them might die, and some of them will turn into great mighty oaks or great apple trees and generate, profits. But I think that in both cases, it's also a way to be impactful about something that you care passionately about. Right? So you can put your money behind a founder that's trying to solve a problem that needs to be solved, but it's with your help, right?
I think I hear what you're saying, especially about people who are used to only digging holes in the ground. I know a lot of us in Houston are aware that there are what I would call the very ultra wealthy family offices, the billionaire class, and they are slow to come to venture as an asset class. I think there's a massive opportunity in accredited investors who are below that, more in the, let's say, the $5 to $50 million range, who I think would be very open-minded to this. They don't know they qualify. They don't know this is something that can be learned, just like learning in the stock market, and that they can actively get involved. And that's something that I want to see change. I think we talk about activating capital. If we are able to get 5%, 10% of those people thinking about this asset class, think of how much good that would do if they each invested in a couple of angel deals a year. We're not asking them to invest in 50 or 100. Again, they're not Mark Cuban. But if they did just a couple a year, and again, with that percentage of the population, that would be a huge impact to supporting innovation, supporting entrepreneurs, and driving growth of jobs, of all kinds of opportunity here in Houston and beyond. And maybe by starting with those people, instead of trying to go and convince the billionaires first, I'm actually thinking maybe just do it that way.
I like that idea. Well, and the amount of money, like you said, we're talking about is $25K if you're making a direct investment. Sometimes through Han, you can invest in a deal for as little as $5K.
As little as $5 if we do a special purpose vehicle.
Right, SPV. So there you go. Anybody out in the audience, $5K is all you need with accredited status, and that just involves talking to your CPA or something. And
Absolutely.
having them validate your income or your net worth. Well, one piece of angel investing that a lot of people enjoy is mentoring, and I know you're known for your passion of mentoring. Can you share a little bit about your vision and tell us about your work as a mentor, and in particular in the context of the Eagle Investor Program?
Oh, absolutely. So mentoring startups is what I've done as my profession for the past 20-something years. Since I stopped being a founder, I've been helping other people through that process, because being a founder is one of the hardest jobs in the world. And you don't know what you're headed into unless you've done it a few times before. So I've been mentoring startups for the majority of my career, certainly 20 years or more. And it's trying to help founders understand the roadblocks that they don't even know that they're going to be hitting. Creating great founders and resilient founders is so important so that we continue to build innovative companies. in addition to the founders that we currently have, I think we need to be very intentionally focused on our young people. So I created a nonprofit that we call Eagle Investors that works with low-income high school students, primarily from underrepresented communities, and it introduces them to the excitement of innovation, entrepreneurship, and investing. So hearkening back to what we were saying a few moments ago, they go through a year-long program where they get to play like they're Mark Cuban. And they get to be the investor. And they spend a year learning how to analyze startups and think about, are they investable? That's a phrase that those of us in the entrepreneurial community use a lot. Is something investable? It's not a real English word, but to all of us it means, is it worthy of our capital? And this gives them an opportunity to learn, what does it mean to be investable? Well, that obviously unpacks to a lot. And we give them the basic vernacular to do that. But we also then teach, are you investable? Are you investing in yourself? So we want you to look at startups. Potentially, that's a career opportunity for you. But at the same time, you are learning how smart business people think about investability. And then you can use those same skills and apply it to your life, to your future employer, and potentially to a business that you want to start on your own.
Interesting. How many students have gone through this program now?
We've had a couple hundred go through total. So we started 5.5 years ago. We're in our 6th year of the program. And we work with multiple partner programs across Houston. So some schools and some community groups as well. And we rely on them to bring the students. We develop the content and we take them to the accelerators and incubators of Houston. So they get to go to the ION, to the Cannon, to Greentown Labs, to TXRX. And our top students every year get an invitation to go to the Rice Business Plan competition for all 3 days, which is one of the, as you know, it's one of the most exclusive tickets in Houston. There are adults who can't get into this. And the only high school students that are invited are the Eagle Investors. And we are truly grateful to Brad Burke and Catherine Santamaria and everybody at RBPC because they let us bring these Eagle Investors. And they get to be in this professional environment that is designed, obviously, for deal making. And they act like real investors. For 3 days, they network, they meet the companies, they take notes on all of them. I need to show you our evaluation form that we teach the students to go through. I would say that they probably are better at evaluating a startup than some adults. They can't read. We don't teach them to read the financials, but everything else.
Do they pick one then?
They do. They do. They out of the 42 companies that come, they pick one. And this year they awarded a $15,000 prize, cash and investment, subject to due diligence, of course, like many others. But yes, and they get to go to the awards banquet. They get their picture taken. And again, these are kids in general, young people, students who come from low-income backgrounds. They don't know this world exists. And here they are at a gala banquet, getting their picture taken with a startup company and a big check. They come out just absolutely floating on air, and it changes how they see the world.
And how did you come up with this idea to form this nonprofit?
I'm a mom, frankly. And so education has been my passion for a very long time, even before I had kids. But as an entrepreneur myself and as a consultant, I would take my boys, my 2 sons, with me to business meetings. And I started taking them with me to the Rice Business Plan competition. There was a student prize a long time ago. And they would come and I would let them come with me to the competition. And I saw how it changed how they saw the world. The confidence it gave them because they were hearing about innovation constantly. They learned to ask intelligent questions. They learned to confidently go up and talk to startups. And through our other volunteer work and through some personal friends that I have who run some groups that are for low-income youth, I thought, why can't those young people who lack opportunity, why couldn't they get the same experience? And we didn't just want to take them to the Rice Business Plan competition, as wonderful as it is. We wanted to give them a year-long program so that they would have the tool set to confidently walk into Rice University and feel like they belong. They've got some lingo, they have some knowledge, some networking skills, and they are ready to walk in and confidently judge.
Well, I think that might have also been hopeful that you were a homeschool mom. Right?
I am.
We're both homeschoolers.
You and I think we're the only two people in entrepreneurship who homeschooled our kids. Though I actually think it's part of that mindset of do things differently. But then as a homeschool parent, I wanted them to have the experience of creating this startup. So the three of us created Eagle Investors together, and they were actively involved in fundraising, in creating the programming, in delivering the content to the students, in every aspect of a business. It was an entrepreneurial venture, even though it was a nonprofit.
And it's two sons, right?
Two sons.
I've met them both. Very impressive, by the way.
Thank you. I'm a little biased, but yes, they're both off. They're undergrads now.
They have a presence, so I think you did teach them how to be confident.
Thank you. I am very bullish on Houston. I think this is the most exciting time I have seen in the entrepreneurial ecosystem here. I feel an energy from the startups, from new activated investors. I see the growth inside of not only Houston Angel Network, but in other groups, people who want to get engaged, people who are thinking about how can I be part of innovation and making the world better. Entrepreneurs are really problem solvers, and investors are as well. Our capital is what fuels them to solve great problems. And I see so much going on inside of Houston in the energy transition, in technology, in space. And I think there are going to be some other really exciting ones as well. The sports tech. There's actually some wonderful things going on in the consumer space. We are one of the largest, most diverse cities on the planet. And I think it's only going up from here.
I agree with you, and you're definitely in the middle of all of it. It's certainly an inspiration, everything you're doing with Han and with your Eagle Investor Group.
As are you. My goodness, you are
that.
Playing an amazing role in the ecosystem, Chris.
We're trying.
We're all appreciating it. So
Well,
we're doing
you.
it together.
Yeah, that collaboration is key.
Absolutely.
Well, thanks for being on the show today. I have my
loved
Bitcoin
it.
socks on today as an alternative asset class.
Are you in Bitcoin?
I did a project way back when where they wanted to pay me in Bitcoin.
And did you take it?
It's back in 2014, so I will say
should
yes.
have.
I did. So it was
Good for you.
it was again. I wanted to learn about it, right? And so and they wanted to pay me in Bitcoin. I'm like, well, I want to learn more about it, and so let me try it. And
Yeah.
So I think.
Did you keep it?
Sure, of course.
Very nice. Man, I'm jealous.
Yeah, that was back when it was around 400.
Woohoo.
So I have some soft tech socks for you.
Thank you
Spaceman.
so much.
So,
Oh,
I don't know
fun.
if you wear socks or not, or your kids think you do.
Absolutely. Thank
A
you.
little swag bag as well. So thank you for being on the show.
Thank you, Chris. And I am excited to keep working with you. So thank you.